All right, man. So let's get into it. Crazy because the Clippers Arena's name is the Intuit Dome. Shouts out to the LDBC. Salute to A Weapons. He rep Life Music. Appreciate everybody for tapping on in. Somebody came in my comments last night and, they were just talking trash and, oh, Ticket, man, why are you worried about this? Why are you? Because I love the game of basketball and I want the utmost dignity and honor in the game to be held. And I want that standard to be held across the board. And whenever you see cap and foolishness, in my opinion, you should speak out and stand up against it, especially if you have a voice and you want to keep as much integrity in the league as you can. Now, of course, you can't get everybody. Some people are going to fly under the radar. Some people are going to get off with the cap and the foolishness that they do. But the people who you got a chance to really come in here and really do some real work on, investigative work, and you find things, man, you got to tell that truth, regardless of how it end up. Now, that takes us today back to a man who is currently in a very serious situation with the National Basketball Association. And it made me look deeper into his past and his history. And that is the owner of the LA Clippers, Steve Ballmer. Now, Steve Ballmer is currently being investigated, and we're going to talk about that in a second again, by an independent firm from the National Basketball Association's CBA agreement to whether when there is controversies and conflicts of this nature, then an independent law firm will do the investigations. But I did some investigations myself into Steve Ballmer, and even before he came to the National Basketball Association, and I'm going to tell y'all what I found. Now, Steve Ballmer, who was a former CEO of Microsoft from 2000 to 2014, and he's the current owner of the NBA's Los Angeles Clippers, has been embroiled in several high-profile controversies, primarily related to his business practices, legal battles, and ethical questions around competition and finances. Now, while he lacks major personal scandals, meaning criminal behavior outside of the corporate world, you know, as far as, sex scandals and things like that, his career has drawn significant criticism for aggressive tactics, strategic missteps, and alleged rule bending. Now, I'm going to give you guys some of these things. Now, this first one, he kind of inherited when he went to Microsoft in 2000, and that was the Microsoft antitrust lawsuit. Now, as Steve Ballmer assumed the CEO role in January of 2000, Microsoft was already deep in a massive U.S. Department of Justice antitrust case accusing the company of monopolistic practices, meaning monopolizing, right? Including bundling Internet Explorer with Windows to crush competitors like Netscape. The trial, which began under Bill Gates, exposed internal emails showing Microsoft's ruthless tactics. Steve Ballmer's strategy, or he shifted the strategy to settle that lawsuit in 2001, agreeing to behavioral remedies like sharing APIs with rivals. But critics argued it highlighted a culture of anti-competitive behavior he perpetuated. Now, the scandal cost Microsoft billions in legal fees, and stock value, and it led to ongoing state lawsuits. Also, the antitrust, or the anti-competitor, I should say, rhetoric and tactics that went on from 2000 to 2005 under Steve Ballmer's watch. Steve Ballmer, outspoken disdain for his rivals at that time, fueled multiple controversies. In the year 2000, he called Linux communism, and in 2001, likened its open source model to a cancer that just eats the machine as it invades, drawing backlash from the tech community for dismissing free software. In 2005, during a dispute over Google hiring ex-Microsoft exec Kai-Fu Lee, engineer Mark Lewandowski alleged that Steve Ballmer threw a chair in anger and threatened to kill Google. Steve Ballmer dismissed it as exaggeration, but it painted Steve Ballmer as volatile. He also mocked Apple's iPhone in 2007, claiming it had quote unquote no chance due to pricing, a prediction that aged poorly as iOS dominated the mobile world. Strategic mismanagement and a quote unquote lost decade at Microsoft, 2007 through 2013. Steve Ballmer faced intense criticism for Microsoft's failure to innovate in emerging tech, leading to what some called a quote-unquote lost decade. Key missteps included killing the promising Courier tablet project in 2010 to protect Windows, delaying entry into smartphones, Windows flopped, the phone flopped, Windows Phone flopped, and the disastrous Windows Vista launch in 2007, plagued by bugs and compatibility issues that alienated users. These led to Microsoft missing the mobile revolution, with Android and iOS capturing 99% market share by 2013. Outlets like the BBC named him, Steve Ballmer, in 2013 one of the worst CEOs. Forbes called Steve Ballmer the worst CEO of a large U.S. company in 2012. And investor David Einhorn demanded that Steve Ballmer resign, citing him as a drag on stock value. Internal tensions peaked with a reported shouting match with Bill Gates over strategy, straining their relationship to the point they stopped speaking by 2014. IRS tax audit, transfer pricing scrutiny in 2014. Shortly after leaving Microsoft, Steve Ballmer was subpoenaed by the IRS in a corporate tax audit targeting Microsoft's use of offshore entities to minimize U.S. taxes via transfer pricing, meaning shifting profits to low-tax countries like Ireland. The IRS sued Steve Ballmer and other executives to testify, alleging billions in evaded taxes. While not personal misconduct, it spotlighted Steve Ballmer's role in Microsoft's aggressive tax strategies during his tenure, echoing broader Silicon Valley scandals. The Clippers' DeAndre Jordan free agency tampering 2015 when he came to the National Basketball Association. Steve Ballmer's first year as the Clippers owner, after buying the team for $2 billion post Donald Sterling's racist scandal, the NBA fined the franchise $250,000 for offering DeAndre Jordan unauthorized incentives during his 2015 free agency drama. DeAndre Jordan initially agreed to join the Dallas Mavericks, but returned to LA amid reports of the Clippers' quote-unquote tampering via business opportunities to sway him, skirting league rules on player inducements. It was a minor scandal that highlighted early rule bending under Clippers owner Steve Ballmer. Remember, let's start right here. Steve Ballmer left Microsoft in an alleged bad way, where him and Bill Gates were at each other, allegedly, and not even on speaking terms. They just had so much disdain for each other. He comes to the NBA, and right away in 2015, starts with scandals with the DeAndre Jordan scandal. Now, everybody remembers, or should remember, what happened with the DeAndre Jordan, right? Dallas Mavericks, right? Scandal. Los Angeles Clippers scandal, right? And I want to tell you guys about that right now. And I think that this should refresh everybody's memory, because it's ironic that Mark Cuban is now taking up for Steve Ballmer, when him and Steve Ballmer, we all remember, or you should remember, if you're old enough, what happened that summer when DeAndre Jordan had agreed to go join Mark Cuban in the Dallas Mavericks. Now, this was back in the summer of 2015. DeAndre Jordan, who was the star center for the Clippers, had become an unrestricted free agent in July of 2015 after having a great season with the Clippers. Now, both the Clippers and the Mavericks, Steve Ballmer and Mark Cuban, pursued him aggressively, as he was once one of the top big men available in the market, known for his shot blocking and rebounding and dominance defensively around the paint. This is back when they valued big men, when they had Lob City in these streets. The NBA's free agency period allows teams to negotiate with players starting on July the 1st, but contracts cannot be signed until until that period ends, right? The moratorium period ends, which is around July the 9th. So basically, what happened was DeAndre Jordan initially committed to sign with the Dallas Mavericks on July the 3rd, 2015. After negotiations, DeAndre Jordan had verbally agreed to a 4-year, $80 million max contract with the Dallas Mavericks, a decision that completely shocked the LA Clippers and their fans. Verbal agreements are non-binding in the National Basketball Association until the moratorium period lifts, but they are often considered a gentleman's agreement. DeAndre Jordan informed the Dallas Mavericks that he intended to sign, and the team, led by billionaire owner Mark Cuban and NBA superstar Dirk Nowitzki, celebrated the coup, believing that DeAndre Jordan would bolster their roster, playing beside Dirk Nowitzki. But as the moratorium period continued, the Clippers, desperate to retain DeAndre Jordan, launched a campaign to change his mind. Reports emerged that Clippers players like Chris Paul, Blake Griffin, and J.J. Redick, along with head coach Doc Rivers and none other than the new owner, Steve Ballmer, reached out to DeAndre Jordan. On July the 8th, tensions spilled onto social media and what became known as the Emoji War. Clippers and the Mavericks players, as well as the fans, posted emojis. Clipper ships versus cowboy hats to sway DeAndre Jordan or mock the rival team. This lighthearted but intense online exchange amplified the drama. DeAndre Jordan, reportedly wavering, was at his Houston, Texas home when the LA Clippers orchestrated a dramatic intervention. Key Clippers figures, Chris Paul, Blake Griffin, Doc Rivers, and others, flew to Houston and essentially barricaded themselves in DeAndre Jordan's house to persuade him to stay. They refused to leave until he recommitted to the Clippers. Meanwhile, Dallas Mavericks owner Mark Cuban drove to DeAndre Jordan's home, but was unable to meet with him. He later claimed the Clippers blocked his access. Now, Twitter posts from that time and retrospective accounts describe this as a chaotic scene. Mark Cuban circling the house and the Clippers players tweeting emojis like padlock to signal that they had locked DeAndre Jordan in. Late on July the 8th, 2015, DeAndre Jordan reversed his decision. He reversed his decision. Now, let me tell y'all, let's go back to this again. And he agreed to stay and re-sign with the Clippers for a 4-year, $87.6 million deal. He apologized to Mark Cuban and the Mavericks for backing out. The decision was finalized once the moratorium lifted and DeAndre Jordan signed his contract. The Clippers' aggressive tactics worked, but they drew criticism for their ethics. Controversy escalated when the National Basketball Association investigated the Clippers for potential tampering violations, specifically unauthorized business incentives. The National Basketball Association, through their investigation, found out that during the Houston, Texas standoff, the Los Angeles Clippers offered DeAndre Jordan third-party business opportunities to sweeten the deal, which violated NBA rules prohibiting inducements beyond the player's contract. These reportedly included endorsement or investment deals that were tied to Steve Ballmer's business connections. In August of 2015, the National Basketball Association fined the Clippers $250,000 and new owner Steve Ballmer for violating the anti-tampering rules. The league statement cited presenting the opportunity for a third party to provide additional compensation as the infraction. Although they had no draft picks taken for that incident, and no individuals, including the owner Steve Ballmer, new owner Steve Ballmer at that time, were personally fined. But the incident tarnished the Clippers' reputation. Clippers owner Mark Cuban was livid and publicly criticized DeAndre Jordan's flip-flop and Steve Ballmer and the Los Angeles Clippers' tactics. Mark Cuban called the situation unprofessional and later said he felt betrayed after DeAndre Jordan's verbal commitment. Twitter posts from 2015 show the Mad fans echoing Mark Cuban's anger, accusing the Clippers of kidnapping DeAndre Jordan. Steve Ballmer and Doc Rivers defended their actions, arguing they were fighting for their player within the rules of the moratorium period. They framed it as a passionate effort to keep a key team member, but critics saw it as strong-arming. DeAndre Jordan avoided the media for weeks, letting his apology to Mark Cuban via text and his play on the court speak for itself. He faced boos in Dallas for years after this. The saga was dubbed a circus by media outlets like ESPN and Bleacher Report. Some praised the Clippers' hustle, while others, including Twitter users at the time, called it a low point for the NBA free agency ethics, accusing new owner Steve Ballmer of leveraging his wealth and his influence. That incident was Clippers owner Steve Ballmer's first major controversy, as he had just entered the league in ownership as the Clippers owner, coming just a year after he purchased the team for $2 billion following Donald Sterling's forced sale due to a racist remark scandal. It highlighted Steve Ballmer's aggressive, win-at-all-cost styles, reminiscent of his Microsoft days, raised questions about how far his teams would go or could go during free agency. The $250,000 fine was seen as a slap on the wrist for new billionaire owner Steve Ballmer, but it set a precedent for stricter NBA oversight and tampering, a reoccurring issue in later years, which takes us to now. The Kawhi Leonard salary cap circumvention allegations. The most recent and explosive scandal erupted this past week when journalist Pablo Torre reported Steve Ballmer, the LA Clippers, funneled $28 million, and Kawhi Leonard allegedly brokered another side deal with Aspiration Company for another $20 million, totaling $48 million, allegedly, to Kawhi Leonard via a quote-unquote no-show endorsement deal with Aspiration, a now defunct Green Bank. Ballmer invested $50 million in this same company. Kawhi allegedly gets paid $48. Steve Ballmer invested $50 million in. Allegedly, Kawhi Leonard did no work, but he received cash and $20 million in stock, bypassing the NBA salary cap rules during his 2021 Supermax extension. A former Clippers employee claimed that Steve Ballmer instructed the staff not to question it as circumvention tactic. The NBA has now hired the law firm Wacho, Lipton, Rosen, and Katz. The same as they hired Donald Sterling was removed from the National Basketball Association to investigate with potential penalties, including fines, lost draft picks, or cap stripping. Ballmer denied involvement on ESPN, calling it absurd and claiming he was scammed by Aspiration. His stake was 3%. But critics like Chris Mannix found his defense unconvincing. Mark Cuban called it far worse than the Joe Smith scandal. As a part of a September the 8th, 2025, the probe is ongoing. Steve Ballmer expressing anger and sadness for his staff. This made me think about something. How diabolical can this situation be? With the history of the Dallas Mavericks, Mark Cuban, and Steve Ballmer, and Mark Cuban, ironically, is the only owner in the National Basketball Association that has verbally spoken up, allegedly spoken up, for Clippers owner Steve Ballmer and his once rival. It made me think, why in the blue hell would Mark Cuban stand up for Steve Ballmer and say, hey man, he can't be this stupid, he ain't dumb? It made me think, why would Mark Cuban go do that entire interview with Pablo Torre? And in that interview, Mark Cuban said that Aspiration contacted him and tried to get a deal with his team. And he immediately snuffed it out and knew that they were not legit. It made me think, did Mark Cuban really stand up for Steve Ballmer? Or did Mark Cuban quietly but loudly eliminate any excuse for Steve Ballmer publicly to not be able to be fooled? Because remember, Mark Cuban said he wasn't fooled. His argument is Steve Ballmer is not that stupid. But Steve Ballmer is telling the world that I got conned. They conned me. Mark Cuban, you are a smart, smart man. And now that I think about it, Mark Cuban may be diabolical, as in eliminating any excuses for Steve Ballmer. Maybe Mark Cuban never forgot what happened with DeAndre Jordan. And while everybody thinks that Mark Cuban stood up for Steve Ballmer, maybe Mark Cuban is making sure that the NBA knows that Steve Ballmer should have no excuse. Once again, Mark Cuban is the only man that have allegedly spoken up as an owner for Steve Ballmer, while many of the other owners have complained about Steve Ballmer's tactics in the National Basketball Association. Think about that. Think about that. Mark Cuban may have fooled the world into thinking that he's standing up for Steve Ballmer, when in fact, he could potentially have been getting the shovel. Because if you think about it, Mark Cuban said in the interview with Pablo Torre that the same company, Steve Ballmer, who he says is a very smart man, he's not stupid enough to do that, said Mark Cuban. Maybe it's a setup, reverse psychology. so that the NBA knows there's no way that Steve Ballmer could be this stupid to get conned by this company, because they wrote me too, and I snuffed it out from the very beginning and never spoke with them and did work with them ever. Steve Ballmer did. Steve Ballmer is not only accused of doing business with Aspiration, Steve Ballmer is accused of funneling $48 million under the table through a non-legitimate company just to pay Kawhi Leonard. And by the way, through a non-legit company. Mark Cuban respects Pablo Torre and went on Pablo's podcast. If you didn't see that podcast, go back and watch that podcast, but from a different perspective. Not as if Mark Cuban is defending Steve Ballmer, but as Mark Cuban as a man who was once at war with Steve Ballmer over the DeAndre Jordan situation, who has now come forward loudly and eliminated all excuses for Steve Ballmer to not know what the hell he was doing. If I'm right, Mark Cuban truly is a genius, and he's diabolical. Everybody was bashing Mark Cuban, saying, Mark, how in the blue hell could you stand up for Steve Ballmer and say that Steve can't be this stupid? Well, that's because now it may be that Mark Cuban knows that he's got Steve Ballmer dead to rights on this one. But he's publicly going to put it on the record publicly that this guy can't be this stupid, man. I mean, he can't. I mean, he's the multi-billionaire. I mean, he's one of the best owners in the league. How can he be this stupid to deal with this company? And Mark Cuban be the only owner who spoke up. And all these other owners are billionaires and haven't said a word and reportedly despise Steve Ballmer and his tactics in the National Basketball Association, according to a San Antonio Spurs ex-vice president. Now go think about how Mark Cuban was diabolical in his interview with Pablo Torre, because Mark Cuban pulled up the email with Aspiration. And he says as soon as he saw what Aspiration was talking about, Mark Cuban says he knew then that that company was full of shit. Mark Cuban is a very smart man. At first, I looked at it wrong. I ain't gonna lie. I looked at it wrong. But now, I want you to listen to Mark Cuban. He's not stupid. Mark Cuban is one of the smartest men in the National Basketball Association. And I had to remind myself of that. And I want you to listen, because Mark Cuban was a genius to get out here, put his face on this thing. And they say revenge is a dish that's best served cold. Check it out. Check it out.
To do something he knew was against all NBA. Not only that, that Ballmer, if he did something illicit and under the table and tried to, work around the salary cap, then he's got to be bricks, right? Because at that point in time, he's the dumbest human being on the planet because he trusted these scammers to do something he knew was against all NBA rules.
Mark Cuban is diabolical, nigga. He is Hold on, we got to get to this again. See, I'm going to tell y'all this shit. Do you smell what the Rock is cooking? This is great, god daggone greatness right here in front of your face, ladies and gentlemen. This is greatness talking to y'all. Mark Cuban, in my opinion, never forgot about what happened with DeAndre Jordan. See, when you roll with me, it's just pure, unadulterated effing greatness, ladies and gentlemen, that you're listening to. Remember, I had to remember. When I saw Mark Cuban come out, taking up for Steve Ballmer, I had to remember, why in the blue hell would Mark Cuban take up for Steve Ballmer? And then I looked. DeAndre Jordan controversy. He tried to sign with the Dallas Mavericks. And who intervened and was fined for breaking the rules? None other than Steve Ballmer and the LA Strippers. That's right. So, as I play this for you guys, I want y'all to listen to this not as if Mark Cuban is taking up for Steve Ballmer, but as if Mark Cuban is burying Steve Ballmer and letting the NBA world know that Steve Ballmer has no excuse if he's found guilty. I.e., the hammer should be laid on his ass because he can't argue paperwork from Pablo Torre. He can't argue the paperwork. This is not about billionaires backing each other. Billionaires don't back each other. Billionaires take down billionaires. Billionaires are ruthless. Billionaires go to war. Mark Cuban was surgical and diabolical, in my opinion. And Mark Cuban's making sure, because if it was billionaires backing billionaires, all the other owners would have came out as well and backed fellow owner Steve Ballmer. But the only one is the one that you had war with over DeAndre Jordan in a period where that could have shifted the powers in the NBA. If a prime DeAndre Jordan went to go play with Dirk Nowitzki, are you out of your mind?
It was either the SEC or CFTC said that they were under investigation. So the minute Aspiration was under investigation, I guarantee you, in the immortal words of Charles Barkley, I guarantee it that the NBA took a hard look at it. And not only that, that Ballmer, if he did something illicit and under the table and tried to, work around the salary cap.
That's the question. See, Mark Cuban is putting all this shit on blast. Mark Cuban's a fucking genius. He says, I guarantee you the NBA did an investigation. What if the NBA didn't investigate Aspiration? What if the NBA didn't catch any of these things until Pablo Torre did his podcast and put it on blast? Real effing journalism. And let me tell y'all this. ESPN got rid of Pablo Torre. That's how I know I'm going to believe his ass. They got rid of Pablo Torre. Was Pablo Torre doing too much damn investigative work over there at ESPN? Because they got rid of him and got this country bumpkin, Kendrick Perkins, up here running his goddamn mouth. Sound like a new fool. Everybody do it. Everybody do it. I'm telling you, man. Mark Cuban, payback is a B. Listen to how Mark Cuban is setting up Steve Ballmer to have zero excuses. Listen.
Then he's got to be bricks, right? Because at that point in time, he's the dumbest human being on the planet because he trusted these scammers to do something he knew was against all NBA rules. A, I just don't see that happening. B, the NBA would have found it easily. Three, this alludes to the Steve Ballmer can't be that dumb thing. I mean, I guess I've been scammed. Everybody's scammable. But in order for this to work, in my opinion, he has to trust that whole company.
Mark Cuban setting him up. Mark Cuban set him up for the rock bottom. Oh, Mark Cuban set him up for the rock bottom. Oh my God. Oh my God. This is diabolical. Mark Cuban, listen to what he's saying. Mark Cuban is making sure there's no doubt in the NBA's mind that if Steve Ballmer and the Clippers are found guilty, Steve Ballmer is a diabolical man. Listen to what Mark Cuban is saying. Everybody read it wrong, in my opinion. They think that Mark Cuban is taking up for Steve Ballmer. Mark Cuban is taking all of the excuses off the table for the NBA and for Steve Ballmer. Mark Cuban never forgot what they did with DeAndre Jordan. Mark Cuban, you slick bastard. Mark Cuban, boy, Mark Cuban, only the ticket is smart enough to figure this out. Only the ticket, baby. Let's keep going. But listen to what Mark Cuban says. And everything he says sets up Steve Ballmer. That if the NBA's investigation comes back and says that the Clippers are guilty, it sets up Steve Ballmer to be completely finished. Listen to the words that Mark Cuban uses about you can't be that stupid. Listen to all these things very closely. I want y'all to listen. I want everybody to listen because Mark Cuban said something. He said something. He said the company, Aspiration, tried to do a deal with him too. That's what Mark Cuban said. Now listen up. And listen to what Mark Cuban said. He said as soon as he saw what time it was with Aspiration. He said, oh no, I already saw from the jump that they weren't legit. So how the hell didn't? And and my boy Man Down, that is y'all excuse. Because y'all was sitting over there talking about something, oh yeah, Steve Ballmer gonna have a lot of people he delegating things to. This and nah, man, that's bullshit. Mark Cuban's a multi-billionaire too. Mark Cuban took the email, read it himself, and said, oh hell no. No excuses, dog.
So they did. In March of 2020, they sent me an email asking if I wanted to get involved.
Now, listen to Mark Cuban. This is the setup, right? Mark Cuban, oh my God. Mark Cuban came out the dead with this right here. Laid the smackdown all over Steve Ballmer. And everybody thought Mark Cuban was going for Steve Ballmer, even me, until I thought about the past beef. Mark Cuban is setting it up so if the NBA does the investigation and finds them guilty, he has zero excuse, Steve Ballmer. Zero excuse. And that it would be such egregious thing. Listen to his words. That this will be an offense that could have him removed from NBA ownership forever. Listen to what Mark Cuban said. And man down, y'all can use this audio too, because Mark Cuban's a billionaire too. And Mark Cuban said that same company hit him up and he read the email and he said, hell no.
They're probably trying to pitch me. So they did. In March of 2020, they sent me an email asking if I wanted to get involved.
Who is the guy who sent the email to you?
Let me find.
Listen to what Mark Cuban said. This shit, bro, you have to pay attention to the details, nigga. This shit diabolical, nigga. Listen to what he said.
So when I saw your report, right, I went up and I just searched in my email to see if they had ever sent me anything. Because I figured if they're trying to pitch Steve Ballmer, they're probably trying to pitch me. So they did. In March of 2020, they sent me an email asking if I wanted to get involved.
Who is the guy who sent the email to you?
Let me find it. Hold on.
Yeah.
Look how quick Mark Cuban had that right there. He's talking about an email from 2020. Mark Cuban is a diabolical bastard. And he pulls up the email that quick. Now listen. Mark Cuban had this ready.
See. Aspiration.
Mark's going through his phone. He's searching for aspiration, which is just a delight for me to help Mark Cuban right? Revisit the past.
3/26/2020 from Joe Sandberg with CC to Andre Cherney.
Yeah.
Mark, I co-founded Aspiration, and the Aspiration team wants to move on this with you. I've copied my co-founder. Aspiration has 1.8 million users, raised 200 million of VC, and is focused on delivering socially conscious financial services to everyday Americans. Would you like to connect by phone so we can operationalize ASAP? First, that's really aggressive, right? I mean, it was like the assumption closed, didn't even ask questions. Because this was during right when the pandemic hit and everything had just shut down, right? And people were trying to get money, and we were talking about making money available. And so this guy's coming in saying, we can do it, we're a bank. And I said, well, are you even a real bank? I appreciate your desire to help. And he said, no worries. Building on my prior response, we have a bank partner that is ready to go on this. We have been finalizing a product with them. We could literally do 1 million of these $1,200 loans. First of all, a company that I've never heard of, ready to do over $1 billion in loans. Okay, that was a red flag. And that was the end of it. I never followed up with those guys, and I don't have anything else from any of them going forward.
Red flag off the rip. Mark Cuban, a real billionaire, saw it clearly. His staff brought it to him, and Mark Cuban said, okay, well, show me the you know what I'm saying, specifics. He saw it. He said, hell no. This is bullshit. But Steve Ballmer didn't. I got conned. Capping ass. And y'all want me to come in here? Come on, Ticket Man. Nigga, know your role and shut your mouth when you hear greatness talking.
It's just fascinating to know that he was sniffing around the NBA. Obviously, this is Joe Sandberg, by the way, who August 21st, 2025, this is the DOJ's press release. The headline is, Aspiration Partners co-founder charged and agrees to plead guilty to a $248 million scheme to defraud investors and lenders. And there's yet more, by the way, in his file with the Justice Department. The SEC is also now investigating him. All of this stuff is part of my fascination with the story. I want to get, though, to why we are doing this, because I don't expect everybody to be on Twitter following both of us. They're probably following you. What a disaster it would be for their mental health if they were following our back and forth. But the reason that I reached out to you so explicitly was you do begin your post by saying, I'm on Team Ballmer, period. Yeah. And I'll just read you the quote, and then you can help explain what it is that you mean. You wrote, as much as I wish they circumvented the salary cap, first, Steve isn't that dumb. If he did try to feed KL money, Kawhi Leonard money, knowing what was at stake for him personally and his team, do you think he would let the company go bankrupt, knowing all creditors would be visible to the world? They got scammed by Aspiration along with many others, crimes for which they pleaded guilty last week. Scammers do scammy things. They did a $300 million sponsorship deal with the Clippers in 2021. That's a huge deal, huge in all caps. The better the team does, the more value the sponsorship has. It actually makes perfect sense that if they stole money from investors and want the Clippers to succeed, why not give stolen money to help keep their best player, ? And then the last graph, Mark, it's sad that Pablo Torre didn't take the time to find out how these scammers pulled off their scam. The idea that the default is Ballmer is the bad guy is going to backfire on him, period.
Yeah, so the reason I'm on Team Ballmer, right, is when I go back and I look, the deal was in 2021, before their arena opened, right? Right when Kawhi signed their new contract, and it's $300 million. When you get a deal of that size with a new category sponsor, the NBA has to approve it. So first of all, the NBA had to have looked into this.
Right. So Mark Cuban is putting the NBA on blast as well. Remember, the NBA was accused of giving Steve Ballmer a slap on the wrist for that DeAndre Jordan situation where he broke the rules. $250,000 fine, slap on the wrist. It's crazy work, man. Crazy work, man. Crazy work, man. Let's keep going.
But that wasn't, the overwhelming thing. Then they defaulted on that deal, right? They stopped doing it, and Ballmer made an announcement at some point in time.
So he putting Adam Silver Slipper and the NBA on blast too, low key, for not doing real research. Because this could expose the NBA for not doing their jobs good enough in catching this. Listen to Mark Cuban's words. And shout out to my boy Atlantean. He ain't never lied. All for Kawhi Leonard to stay hurt, play 40-some% or miss 40-some% of the games. And then not only that, for the dude that he traded to the OKC Thunder for Paul George to win a championship with OKC before the strippers and Paul George and Kawhi Leonard could get a championship with capping ass Steve Ballmer. Crazy work.
I'm saying that the deal was not moving forward, and this was several years ago. But that wasn't really the trigger for Team Ballmer. The trigger for Team Ballmer was in January of 2024 when it was either the SEC or CFTC said that they were under investigation. So the minute aspiration was under investigation, I guarantee you, in the immortal words of Charles Barkley, I guarantee it, that the NBA took a hard look at it.
But what if the NBA didn't? What if the NBA didn't take a hard look at it? Because little old Pablo, all he did was look at the paperwork. When the company got investigated and filed for bankruptcy, all Pablo did was look at the paperwork and he saw KL2 Aspire on the paperwork. What is KL2 Aspire? What the hell is that? KL2 Aspire, LLC. What the hell type of LLC is KL2 Aspire? Oh, it's Kawhi Leonard's LLC. That was suddenly created 2021, the same year as this scandal started. KL2 Aspire LLC was a company managed by Kawhi Leonard. It was reportedly established in 2021, around the time that Kawhi Leonard was a free agent being pursued by NBA teams. The exact date of his creation is not specified in the sources, but it is noted that the LLC was registered in California just months after the LA Clippers broke ground on their Intuit Dome and re-signed Kawhi Leonard to a team-friendly deal. Diabolical. And in this KL2 Aspire LLC is how good old Pablo Torre, who was let go by ESPN, fake ass network, found that KL2 Aspire was Kawhi Leonard's company. K, Kawhi, L, Leonard, and what's his number? Number 2. Ooh. How was the money paid to Kawhi? Through his LLC and not directly. This is sponsorship. If there's nothing to hide. Well, when did Kawhi Leonard get his New Balance deal? And did Kawhi Leonard have his New Balance sponsorship money paid through his LLC? Or was it just this aspiration deal that nobody was supposed to know about? And they wouldn't have known about it if aspiration did not go bankrupt and have to reveal information of money they owed people. And on that list of names of people they owed money on those tax papers was KL2 Aspire LLC, company managed by Los Angeles Clippers part-time superstar Kawhi Leonard.
Not only that, that Ballmer, if he did something illicit and under the table and tried to, work around the salary cap, then he's got to be bricks, right? Because at that point in time, he's the dumbest human being on the planet because he trusted these scammers to do something he knew was against all NBA rules.
He knew that was against all NBA rules. Mark Cuban taking all excuses off the table. Let's keep going.
A, I just don't see that happening. B, the NBA would have found it easily. Three, this alludes to the Steve Ballmer can't be that dumb.
I disagree about the NBA would have found it easily because nobody else found it. The only person that found it was little old Pablo, who they got rid of from ESPN. I guarantee you ESPN wish they didn't get rid of Pablo now. But they probably did because they don't like real journalism over there, in my opinion. You got guys like Kendrick Perkins and these bums running around. These dudes don't want to do no research, man. Even I went and did all this research, man. I don't spend hours researching all these different aspects, man. These dudes don't do no journalistic, no effing integrity. It's just come on here with the same bullshit every day. LeBron James, LeBron James, LeBron James. Weak fucking journalism, man. They don't want to do no deep thoughts. And when I get to cooking on LeBron James, I go deep on that shit. But I do the same thing for other people too. Specifically, Mr. Stevie Ballmer and Mr. Kawhi Leonard. Same energy, baby. Same effing energy.
I mean, I guess I've been scammed. Everybody is scammable. But in order for this to work, in my opinion, he has to trust that whole company.
Mark Cuban is a fucking genius. They're going to destroy Steve Ballmer. Mark Cuban said, man, in order for this to work, he's got to trust that whole bullshit company. Not only is he doing that, Mark Cuban doesn't understand. He does understand. This is a federal investigation. That's what I was trying to tell y'all last night. If Steve Ballmer gets caught up, he's done with the feds. That means he was complicit in a scamming organization that illegally funneled money to Kawhi Leonard, and he allegedly fronted the $50 million bill.
And at that point in time, you know, he trusted them enough to give them an investment at some level, but I don't see how he would trust that company to keep probably his darkest secret as an NBA owner so that it wouldn't get out. I just don't see in any way, shape, or form that all those things could happen.
It's fascinating to probe the mind of a former NBA owner about the logic, right?
I told him 27%, but I'm not the governor.
Excuse me, sir.
I'm just playing with it. I'm playing with it.
Hard owner Cuban. God Emperor. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
The thing I wanted to ask about, though, as I probe your thinking, right? Because it's fascinating to see how you would approach this dynamic.
Right.
Because I'm thinking, like, well, you know, would it be different as a calculus to you if Steve Ballmer had personally put in like $50 million and was personally helping with the business development of Aspiration with the co-founders of the company? If he was like, you know, doing that sort of a thing where he was personally helping.
I could see, what I can see happening is, okay, you're going to do a $300 million deal with us. I'll put $50 million in, right? He probably has no idea how, you know, the day-to-day operations, because in the bigger scheme of things, there's just not enough hours in the day to deal with that, right? But
let's talk about the logic of that, right? Because I think you're making sense. You're making dollars and cents now, right? So there's a $300 million incoming to the Clippers.
Right. Potentially over time, yeah.
Over 23 years, specifically.
Right.
And that's in 2021, in the fall. But then I'm just trying to like rack my brain, and I'm like, okay, so if he were to put in $50 million while getting 300 back, why is that a good business decision? Just for people who don't understand this stuff, why is that a good business deal?
Well, so there's got to be more than one piece to that, right? Because it's not necessarily give 50, get 300, right?
He couldn't do it like that, Atlantean. They would instantly get caught. They would flag it. If he would have sent Kawhi Leonard $50 million cash straight up, that would have got flagged by the IRS. That would have been flagged, period. And then Mark Cuban would have been out of there. Even if Kawhi Leonard would have got it through a third or fourth party, it would have been flagged. There's no way you're getting that type of money and it's not accounted for. That would have been flagged. So Steve Ballmer, they had no other way. He's not going there with $50 million in cash and handing it to Kawhi. You know how much money $50 million in cash is? You can't fit $50 million in cash in a guy daggone in a house. So there's no way. There's no way. You're not listening. That's not true. I don't believe he has 50. You know how much $50 million is? $50 million won't fit in a safe. So for you to think that it won't fit in a safe, $50 million It's so much money. You couldn't even put $50 million in an entire mansion. And nobody that's billionaires are running around here with $50 million in cash. The reason why I say that is because over time the money will deteriorate. So a lot of these people have the money in accounts and things like that. He may have like a couple $1 million in cash, but $50 million in cash, no, no, not working, not working, not working. There's not enough space for $50 million in cash. Remember, Pablo Escobar, one of the most notorious gangsters in the world, he lost so much money. He didn't even, he listen. He lost so much money because it deteriorated of him having it just sitting around in safes, sitting around in cribs and stuff like that. Remember that. So yeah, he's not. He don't got that money sitting around like that. That money's in the bank and the stocks, all kind of other stuff. He don't got 50 million just sitting around in cash in the house. That's that's a lot of bread, bro. A lot of bread.
First of all, over 23 years, that's a long time. The net present value is the net present value, whatever, right? But if you're looking at it, and again, do you know the date of when he invested the money? I don't.
September of 2021.
Right when they made, so right around the time they made the announcement, right? That
Yes.
that they were going to be a partner.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So he gives 50. Now, what you're suggesting that there's a quid pro quo, right?
I'm suggesting that people have asked the question who used to work for the company whether there was a quid pro quo.
Of course, yeah, but at the same time, these guys were doing carbon credits. These guys are doing, the ability to offset, his travel, just like I bought carbon credits to offset my travel, right? So he's thinking it's a good cause, right? So that's the other thing that I'm thinking. I'm not thinking that he's saying, okay, these guys are scammers and I know they're scammers, so maybe they'll do a scam for me. That's what I see as implausible. And that part doesn't work for me.
Yeah, I guess what I'm wondering about is if there had to be something else missing for why you give 50, get 300 over 23 years, right? So the math there, again, you do the math.
Well, it could be maybe you believed in the business. Maybe you believed in the company.
Sure.
I mean, I think just look at Sam Bankman-Fried, right? There's a whole lot of people that believed in him until they didn't. Now, I don't know if that's 50 million big for Steve, small for Steve, in between. I have no idea how he usually invests, but I do know that if he believed in the business of carbon credits and offsets and trees, if it works, it works, and if it doesn't, it doesn't.
But so you didn't believe in it, Mark. You didn't believe in it. That's why I know Mark Cuban is giving him underhanded slaps to the face. Because Mark Cuban instantly didn't believe in it. He was like, nah, man, too many red flags over here. You didn't believe in it, but you're making excuses to why he would believe in it. But you said that he's not that stupid. Yes, he is not. And so that is the reason why Mark Cuban knows. Diabolical work by Mark Cuban.
Okay, then. I guess I want to also just introduce something because people who are not familiar, I'm trying to bring in as big an audience as possible who aren't steeped in the lore of the NBA, right?
Sure.
Fine, dude. Perfect.
I want y'all to think about this. This is crazy work, y'all. This is a legendary all-time story right here. Steve Ballmer, cap and ass, and you have to really have a great mind and understand, like, all these.
Of course, a hardcore basketball fan, and so are you.
Of course. Yeah.
Like, you two are actually two of the guys I think of when it's like really rich dudes who own teams who really care about, say, the distance between the toilets and the seats,
For sure.
right? So there is a micromanaging aspect to this.
No. You're getting two things. That's not micromanaging, right? That's where we'll diverge again. So I see where you're going. You're paying attention to details. If you're paying attention to details as small as how far are the toilets versus, paying attention to any $50 million investment, obviously you're going to pay attention to the details. But no, right? What I said, when I heard him talk about the number of toilets and the distance to toilets, that's just trying to optimize. And so Ballmer, like I was on the audit committee with Ballmer, and Ballmer was the one guy who looked at numbers, right? Now you may think that's an indictment of him, right? But the reality is he's always trying to optimize. That's the way he thinks. That's the way entrepreneurs think. That's the way I think. How am I going to optimize the experience for fans? And if you're trying to spend $1.2 billion and differentiate your arena, the number of toilets and the distance and time it takes to get to them and your food, etc., is just, a metric that you use to determine, how different you're going to be. I don't think it's indicative of anything.
I want to take it beyond just the toilets.
Sure.
because Aspiration was a founding partner of the Intuit Dome, but certainly there are sponsors of a level in which their logo's on the back of the courtside seat, right? Their signage is everywhere.
Right.
You're going to get
on the jersey, whatever.
on the jersey patch, exactly right. So is there a level of familiarity with that sponsor that is not quite the same as a lesser sponsor in your experience as the owner of the Mavericks?
Yes and no. Yes, from the perspective of you're shaking their hands and taking pictures, no matter what. You're showing up at an event, no matter what, right? You're doing the things that makes your customers happy, no matter what. You're taking it to like, I really put in the effort to know their business? Hell no. Right? Because sponsors come and sponsors go. There are some sponsors, like I just went back for the Mavs this week and we honored Coca-Cola and Budweiser and Southwest Airlines. And
but Mark, those are a bit different from the Green Bank Aspiration, those legacy brands that are very
100% different, 100% different, right? But at the same time, it's not that much different in that you're not going to all of a sudden become an expert in their business or even dig into details like you're suggesting.
Now, what if you happen to invest $50 million of your personal money into it?
I've invested millions of dollars into people I've never met.
Have you invested 50?
Not in people I haven't met.
That ethered. Mark Cuban knows what he's doing. I've invested millions of dollars in the people I've never met. Have you invested $50 million? Nope. This shit is good. Mark Cuban set this mofo up for the rock bottom, man. This shit is great. Bro, listen, I'm telling y'all this. You better ride with the ticket on this. Steve Ballmer, man, is looking ugly, man. It's looking real bad, boy. It's looking real bad. You got third party. This ain't the NBA that's doing this investigation. See, when they agreed to the CBA, it is an independent third party that's doing the investigation. And this is going to get real scary because, again, Steve Ballmer has just brought a new arena. What does that mean if they remove Steve Ballmer? Does that mean that the strippers go back to the crypto? Does that mean that Steve Ballmer has to sell the Intuit Dome? Oh, my God, bro. And all to not win a championship and to watch Shea. Think about this, y'all. What if all in 1 year's time, Shea Alexander wins the championship, wins the regular season MVP, wins the Western Conference MVP, wins the NBA Finals MVP, and then Kawhi Leonard and the strippers get stripped down, Kawhi Leonard loses his contract, and owner Steve Ballmer loses his strippers. Lord Jesus have mercy. And they don't win a championship in LA. Oh my God.
But 10 to 15, on a relative basis, it's about the same.
Point taken. Steve is a lot richer than both of us.
Yes.
But the question I'm asking is, it's not merely some sponsor, it's the thing you sort of need to assess, right? Like, if Steve Ballmer is Mr. Optimization, right? I imagine what he might want to look at, for instance, is like the list of frankly, sources of business that this thing you invest $50 million into might be.
No.
You're suggesting that you would not want to...
He probably has a team that does due diligence. And the NBA has a team that does due diligence because it's a new...
But you did due diligence and you refused to work with that same company, Mark. That's why I know Mark is setting it all up. Reverse psychology.
Category. And if the NBA approved it, they're probably going with it. Just like when crypto hit and we got hit, the Heat got hit because of the sponsorship and everybody questioned, crypto.com because of it. The NBA had to approve that category. Does it mean that, everybody looked into the depth of details? No, it doesn't.
This is an indictment on the owner, the commissioner of the NBA, Adam Silver. I told y'all this. This is why I be telling y'all every day on my channel. Adam Silver is horrific. He's trash. I tell y'all this all the time on my channel. Adam Silver is horrible, bro. Horrible. But cats don't be want to listen. They don't be want to listen, man.
I guess what you're saying is FTX happened, and that should give us a sense of how poor the vetting process from the NBA is when it comes to the sponsors that they sign with.
Yes and no, right? So let me just tell you what happens. I invest in a company and they say, Mark, can we put out a quote for the press release and everything? I'm like, go ahead and write it up. I'll approve it. Unless there's something funky about it, I'm like, go for it, right? Half the time, if it's smaller investment, I don't even check. I've got people who do due diligence on these deals, like my Shark Tank deals, due diligence team comes in. Bigger deals, a little bigger team comes in. What do you think? Here's my questions. Get these answers. Do I go into the absolute details? No.
So I want to understand something, though, because when you're saying that Steve Ballmer, was a guy who, of course, wanted to optimize everything, wanted to recruit the best players and all of that, and you had experience, of course, doing the same thing in your own parallel way. I actually want to take us back to one of my favorite internet stories where I really did come to appreciate you on NBA Twitter as an entity, which was the chair in front of the door, DeAndre Jordan, 2015. In a stunning reverse.
Now, let's get to that. Remember I told y'all about the DeAndre Jordan situation? And I'm glad he brought this up. Now, let's get to that part.
Free agent NBA center DeAndre Jordan backed out of a commitment to sign with Mark Cuban's Dallas Mavericks. Instead, he is re-signing with Steve Ballmer's Los Angeles Clippers.
Clipper Blake Griffin posted this pic to Twitter as he and teammates helped keep Mavs owner Mark Cuban away and swayed Jordan, their free agent center, to renege on his contract agreement with Dallas.
Now, remember that. And I'm glad Pablo is very smart, man. ESPN is dumb. Y'all fired Pablo and kept Kendrick Perkins in these bums.
It went to the extent of showing how much everyone cared about getting these players. And so I just want to establish that as just a general principle. But you're also saying that Steve Ballmer is not the type of person who would want to bend or break the rules of cap circumvention to get such players.
Because you have to look at the risk reward. You have to look at the risk reward.
So the question I have is, what explains the fact that in that same case of DeAndre Jordan, which of course involved you with the Mavs and Steve Ballmer with the Clippers, why was Steve Ballmer's Clippers team fined $250,000 by the NBA for reportedly, offering a Lexus endorsement, arranging a Lexus endorsement, according to reporting, to DeAndre Jordan?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't even remember that part happening. That part I don't even recall.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, but Mark Cuban doesn't remember that. Lying capping ass. Mark Cuban, you a slick bastard, boy. You a slick bastard, boy. Mark Cuban knows what he's doing. You don't remember that? You don't remember the biggest controversy in 2015 when you lost out on DeAndre Jordan in his prime, who was one of the best defensive, shot blocking, athletic, lob threat, big men in the league when they were at a premium at that time? Are you out of your damn mind? That's what I be trying to tell y'all. That's why real journalism pays off.
I mean,
it did happen, though. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not saying it didn't, right? That would have been dumb. Like, look, if I'm wrong on this and you're right, then Steve is not as smart as I think he is.
Well, I'm team
Y'all heard what Mark said. Now, Mark couldn't say shit because he knows what he's doing. That's why he had nothing about that. And he's going to act like that didn't affect you, Mark. Man, this is war, boy. Revenge is a dish that's best served cold. You know Mark never forgets. One thing about them billionaires, you do them dirty, they'll never forget. Ever. It's war and beef forever in a day. I told y'all this.
Mark, I guess is what I'm saying here. I'm team bricks, based on the reporting, right? So I don't want to cut you off because I actually want to know what you're about to say. I just feel like a really smart guy can be so desperate to get a star player that justifies the entire mission of opening a privately funded stadium to compete with the Lakers specifically, who were competing with him. And in fact, when it comes to a bunch of scammers who maybe he didn't know were scammers in 2021, but clearly saw them as aligned with him on, we're going to help you do what you want, to the point of him helping with business development. The whole idea of, did he have zero idea that these guys that he was dealing with on a day-to-day basis CCing with the CEO of Intuit, according to emails that we found? Is it possible that that guy would have no idea that they were paying $28 million for a no-show job to the guy who was his most valuable employee, while there was also simultaneously in that same timeline a $300 million 23-year contract being struck between the company, Aspiration, and Steve's baby, the Los Angeles Clippers, that also had in the document that we acquired the contractual language outs at every turn for him to not do anything. And in fact, none of it was ever reported until today. You're saying that that's plausible to you?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, look, the that happened at the Mavs that I had no idea was happening. And people didn't think that that was marginally feasible because you can't pay attention to everything in every deal that you do.
Why did Kawhi Leonard take less money, do you think?
Maybe he had that deal in hand and that was his reason. I don't know.
Because I have 7 sources that say it was to circumvent the salary cap, plus the documentation that suggests that's exactly what happened.
Well, the documentation is the contract you're talking about that says if he no longer plays for the Clippers, right?
Yeah, among other things,
Yeah. I mean, I can make the same argument that the scammers benefit as much because of their sponsorship.
Wait, can you explain that one?
So in every huge sponsorship deal, you get tickets, you get appearances, you get all kinds of ancillary shit, right? And the better the team, the more valuable that is, right? All of our sponsors are going to want to have access to Cooper Flag. Everybody wanted access to Luka, no matter what, right? And part of us getting those bigger deals was giving people access. And so the better the team, the better the stars, the better the value of the sponsorship.
So are you in dispute at all that the deal Kawhi signed in that document, as reported, to the extent that you've seen it, that clearly was to circumvent the cap? It's merely that Ballmer was not aware of it. That's the argument that you're making then.
Right.
So who would have known about it at the Clippers then?
Oh, so Mark Cuban was like, no. That was to circumvent the cap. I just don't think that Steve Ballmer is that stupid to do it. Man, Mark Cuban know what time it is, man. And Mark Cuban know they get ready to hit this nigga with a sonic boom.
Who would have known? Well, wait, no, I don't think anybody knows about it necessarily at the Clippers.
Nobody would have known about the fact that Kawhi Leonard...
You're not... So my logic is different than yours. My logic, I'm putting the hat on of aspiration.
Yes.
And just the aspiration hat on, right? If I'm paying Kawhi to do something for me, even if it's a no-show Tony Soprano job, right? He's of no value to me in Dallas.
Yeah.
I can take some of that scam money that I just brought in and let me give it to Kawhi in the deal, because if Kawhi stays, they're probably going to be better. And if they're better, my sponsorship money is worth even more. There's more value to the scammers to doing this deal than there is to Ballmer for doing the Kawhi deal.
So I guess I just want to square the circle here, right? Because the team had a relationship with Aspiration that had ended as described in 22-23.
Right.
And that started in 21. The Kawhi contract also started in... the LLC was registered, and the LLC was named, very conveniently for my purposes, KL2 Aspire LLC in 21.
Pretty stupid, yeah.
I mean, not the most genius plan by Uncle Dennis Robertson, admittedly.
Right.
But the point is that all of that stuff was happening simultaneously.
So let me ask you a question.
Yeah, please. I just don't understand how the Clippers would have no idea.
Help me with the timeline here.
Yeah.
I forget when Uncle Dennis was an issue and him trying to do side deals.
2019. That was after he won won the title with the Raptors. Yeah.
Right. So, and that was a topic at the Board of Governors meetings. I remember that. I just don't remember the year.
Can you explain what that meeting was like, actually? Because I'm fascinated as to how that goes.
Yeah, it was basically, it wasn't specific to Uncle Dennis, but he was an example. It was effectively that you have to have a specific person you're negotiating with. You have to be a registered agent in order for you to be able to agent.
So they had a meeting about Kawhi's uncle. Man, that's crazy work, man. They were already on Uncle Dennis. Uncle Dennis been out here allegedly, man, and all kind of shit. Man, bro. Crazy work, man. Crazy work, man. Crazy work, bro.
And that statement, by the way, you got to be a registered agent to agent, is not a tautology. That's actually something that requires a quick explainer here, I think, about the rules that changed in 2019. Because the Clippers signing of Kawhi Leonard in free agency in 2019 sparked a landmark NBA investigation. Multiple teams reportedly complained to the league that Dennis Robertson, Kawhi's uncle, who is not a registered certified agent, had gone directly to league owners to demand sweeteners and perks and hidden endorsement deals to circumvent the salary cap. And this investigation resulted in no proof, apparently, of illicit benefits provided by the Clippers, who got Kawhi Leonard. But what Commissioner Adam Silver did decide to do was increase fines and penalties for teams that negotiated with non-certified agents. He also mandated verification of agent certification at the time of contract negotiations. Call them the Uncle Dennis rules, which were then emphasized in a big and dramatic meeting about cap circumvention with Adam Silver and the NBA's Board of Governors. The reporting is that Uncle Dennis made those requests of Lakers owner Jeannie Buss, quote, and that she made it clear that such perks were illegal and would not be considered.
Yeah, because we talked about it in the Board of Governors, yeah.
Right, so Uncle Dennis went to owners.
Is a badass negotiator, yeah.
So you're saying that he didn't go to Steve Ballmer?
Well, maybe he did, right? But if Ballmer had any brains whatsoever, he just laughed at him. And that doesn't mean Uncle Dennis stopped there.
All of which brings us back now to Uncle Dennis, who declined to comment for this episode when we sent him another detailed list of questions. All of this stemming from the fact that he was listed as the designated representative and go-to contact on Aspiration's secret $28 million endorsement deal with his nephew that nobody, not Aspiration nor the Clippers nor Kawhi Leonard, ever announced. When it comes to like when Uncle Dennis is making calls and he's saying, I need to get paid here, which is what the source told me in the finance department. And others have said as well, he was the guy calling saying, hey, you owe us money. And
wait, Uncle Dennis is making the call, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's in the episode too.
Doesn't that say a lot? Isn't that a red flag to you?
In what way?
The fact that it's Uncle Dennis making those calls, right? It's not even plausible to you that this is a deal between Uncle Dennis and these two guys at the top. That
I think the person who is most likely to have zero idea that he was under an Aspiration contract was Kawhi Leonard.
Look, if your reporting is right and Steve knew, then it's over, right? It's over.
So what?
It's over. I told cats. These motherfuckers don't want to listen to me on YouTube. Oh, they're not going to do anything, Ticket. No, it's over with, sucker. That's why I try to tell y'all. But y'all want to do yellow journalism. You don't want to tell the truth. And y'all don't want to get in deep on this shit, man. This shit could really hurt the NBA for a long time. I'm telling you this, bro. This shit could change the entire trajectory of how shit around the NBA works. I'm telling y'all this. But cats don't want to be on this. I'm on this from the jump because I'm seeing what the hell is going on and what type of impact it's going to have across the league.
What do you think the punishment is that's fair? If in fact
he's toast. I mean, he's got, it's hard.
He's toast. I told these niggas that, but they ain't want to listen to me. Oh no, Ticket. Ain't nothing gonna happen to him. I don't believe anything's it because you're an idiot. Like Mark Cuban said, man, if they found him guilty, he's done. He's out of here. I've been telling these clowns this.
Worse than Joe Smith.
Worse than Joe Smith.
Difference.
Worse than Joe Smith. I told y'all this.
The difference is just because someone says Steve Ballmer knew doesn't mean he knew.
What I'm saying is, when Uncle Dennis is calling to say, you owe us the $28 million for the no-show job, in so many words, right? And the sources inside of Aspiration are saying, we were instructed this is the number one priority that we have because Steve Ballmer put $50 million into the company. At the same time, we agreed to pay Kawhi 28. It just feels like as the company is collapsing and the scam is falling apart, the person you might logically attend to, according to the thinking of these sources that I spoke to, the 7 people, is the person who had the most influence over your company among those investors. I just don't see how the Clippers, at some high level, would have no idea.
So let me ask you this, and I don't remember.
Yeah.
Who was Kawhi's authorized agent?
It was Mitch Frankel.
Okay. What does Mitch Frankel say about all this?
That's a great question. Mitch has not responded to our request for comment. I should spell that out.
And it may well be that he thinks Uncle Dennis is in the middle of it and pulling it off because Uncle Dennis is not supposed to be in the middle of any of this shit, right? Well, I guess maybe for marketing deals. For marketing deals, it could be different.
And so this is where I just got to say quickly that we reached out again, not only to Uncle Dennis Robertson, but also to Kawhi's agent, Mitch Frankel, neither of whom responded before our deadline again. We also reached back out to the Clippers with new questions about what Steve Ballmer and front office executives like Clippers president of basketball operations, Lawrence Frank, might have known about Kawhi's deal with Aspiration and when they might have known it. And on Wednesday night, about 45 minutes after Mark and I finished this conversation, the Clippers released the updated version of the statement they gave us for our last episode. A statement that no longer had the phrase provably false in it anymore, by the way. Now, the team says that it welcomes the NBA investigation, and it reiterates that neither Steve Ballmer nor the Clippers knew about any improper activity by Aspiration until after the government started its investigation. The new statement reads, in part, quote, Steve invested because Aspiration's co-founders presented themselves as committed to doing right by their customers while protecting the environment. Neither Steve nor the Clippers organization had any oversight of Kawhi's independent endorsement agreement with Aspiration. To say otherwise is flat out wrong. And
también eres un complaciente. This is crazy work. Crazy work, man. Bro, I try to tell y'all, man, y'all nigga want to listen to me, bro. I come here doing real goddamn journalism. They get ready to hit them niggas up out of here, bro. I'm telling y'all this.
I think it's useful to point out here, as we finally finish the legal disclaimers framing our conversation with Mark Cuban, that the word oversight is not the same word as knowledge. And as for my 7 sources inside of Aspiration, who are the kind of people, by the way, who signed up to work for this company because they actually did care about protecting the environment, to quote the Clippers statement, these people have become key sources in multiple ongoing federal investigations, resulting...
Told y'all, the feds involved, nigga. I told y'all, Steve Ballmer could be in trouble with the feds. The sources who told from the company that Steve Ballmer intentionally did this with Kawhi, they intentionally did this through this company to circumvent the NBA's rule, they're cooperating with the feds. I told niggas. So what you think gonna happen when they ask the feds about Steve Ballmer's role? They're gonna snitch. Steve Ballmer can face prison time if found guilty on this stuff. This is the thing, and Kawhi Leonard too. This is the thing I was telling people last night in that video. Y'all don't want to listen, man. Shit, everybody talking about, hey man, ain't nothing gonna happen. Are you an idiot?
In the arrest and guilty plea of co-founder Joe Sandberg, whom the U.S. Attorney for the Central District of California has called, quote, nothing more than a self-serving fraudster, end quote, and who has declined to comment to us through an attorney. And so I suppose that at this point, the whole Department of Justice angle does finally bring us back to the rules of the NBA. But now this is where I think the question of what punishment happens here is on a couple of different levels, right? There's like...
I'm not giving in that he's guilty, that Ballmer knew this was going on, right? Again...
Oh, you're still team Ballmer.
Oh, yeah, for sure. For sure. You haven't told me anything that makes me think otherwise.
But the contortion that you're making...
Oh, no. Yeah, I look at the contortion you're making, right? And I'll tell you why.
Okay.
I'll tell you why. Because you're not giving the scammers enough credit. That's the difference between us. You're assuming that Steve Ballmer has...
Mark, you a funny bastard, boy. You said you didn't trust him off the rip, but you're giving Steve Ballmer every excuse. This I told y'all. Mark is using reverse psychology. He wants, in my opinion, he wants to lay the hammer on Steve Ballmer. He never forgot about what Steve Ballmer did with DeAndre Jordan. And now this is payback's a bitch. And that's the reason why Mark Cuban's the only person that spoke out about this. He probably told all the other owners, y'all don't say nothing. I got this one.
All the leverage and all the knowledge and all the awareness, control the circumstances. I'm telling you, if these two guys were good enough scammers to get valuations at $2 billion plus.
But Mark, can I just jump in here to say that we reported the story of the scam, and it's absurd. The scam is absurd. The scam was very simple, actually. And you know what? You reminded me of it because you mentioned FTX. We also did a story about FTX. We talked to Michael Lewis and Zeke Fox, two authors of the Sam Bankman-Fried books. And my big takeaway was very actually resonant in our reporting on Aspiration. Here are these guys who used sports as a cosign to get credibility as good guys, such that more companies, Meta, the Red Sox, Clippers, these are all that's who aspiration got.
See all this stuff that y'all hearing right now, man? Diabolical work, ladies and gentlemen. Diabolical work. Let's keep going.
And they got it once they got Steve Ballmer. Okay? So Steve Ballmer putting in 50, right? The question is, why would Steve want to do that? And I think the question I keep on returning
I get the foundation of your question.
But the scam,
what's the quid pro quo for Steve?
But the scam, in terms of like why I'm not underestimating the scammers, is because what the scammers did was create a bunch of fake LLCs, fake customers, fake letters of intent that Steve Ballmer, by the way, could have assessed if he wanted to. But again, you're telling me rich guys don't need to do that at that level necessarily, even though they're Jersey Patch sponsors. It feels like it's just his responsibility as the greatest investor of the last 20 years, according to the Acquired podcast, to look at the letters of intent that you can get in the documentation, and you Google them and you say 80 to 90% of these are fake.
So this is where we disagree, right? Your presumption.
But I want to leave that. I want to give that to you. I want to give that to you. I want to give that to you because let's say he didn't do the Googles. All I'm saying is, when it comes to why Steve Ballmer decided to do that deal and like what was going through his mind, I don't think it's a very big logical contortion to say he found somebody who would keep a deal for his most important player who he needed to pay above the salary cap to the tune of $28 million secret so successfully that he would have gotten away with it if it wasn't for me. And so the scam here is not simply, man, these guys were real clever. It was also that they were very stupid. They made up these fake letters of intent, fake LLCs. It collapsed within a couple of years. And the whole thing, Mark, as you know, carbon offsets, it was, we're going to plant some trees, but we're not even going to plant them. We're going to broker it. And we're going to charge 5 to 10 times what it costs to plant a tree in the ground.
It was an arbitrage.
Yeah, 5 to 10 cents for a dollar. Right? Yeah. So that, I mean, it's crazy.
Maybe that's why he invested.
Oh, so by the way, I believe that the end game there was a SPAC in which Steve Ballmer would have had the ability to, at a $2.3 billion valuation.
They did merge with a public company, right? And he would have got, so they probably told Steve to what you just said, some new information for me, right? What they probably told Steve is, we're going to take this out in the SPAC and you'll get your money back right away when the SPAC goes public.
That was exactly part of the plan, as my reporting has indicated to me, was that there was a payday as well. By the way, as you say, multiple reasons to get into business. But the question of...
I should have been the one who married...
Oh, my God, bro. This shit is crazy, man. This shit is crazy, you guys. Smash the like button as y'all come on in.
Cap circumvention and what an owner has a responsibility to know. Doesn't it feel like it's his responsibility to know if the partner that he's gotten into bed with, that's on the jersey patch, on the seats, all over the building, has this side deal? Like, isn't that part of his oversight responsibilities as the owner of the team to do the due diligence?
How is he going to know?
How would he not know? Like, that's the logic here. Is like, you're sort of presuming that these guys hid it from him. And what I'm saying is that 7 sources told me, including the documentation, that everybody knew about it. And this is the question I have.
All your sources are inside the scam company.
Oh, but these are people who are the victims. If there are any victims in this story, it's people who thought...
People who work there always are the victims of the scam company.
Yes, who thought we're trying to do good. We're the climate change people. We're like true believers about carbon offsets, which is sad.
And they got scammed just as badly as everybody else.
And their question
was... Right, but that makes my point. That makes my point, Pablo, that the scammers...
But but you're saying the scammers are really good at scamming. Why would the scammers tell 7 people at least, and I'm told it was dozens who are aware of this, that Steve Ballmer and cap circumvention is the reason we can't talk about this?
No, I get your point, again. But on the flip side, if I want to shut everybody up, hey, we're saving the world. But in order to get this $50 million investment, in order for us to be able to get the value of the sponsorship, I'm going to lie to you and tell you I did this deal that Steve Ballmer's making us do these things, right? Everybody who works for us, stay focused. Don't talk to anybody about this, because if you do, that can make the whole thing fall apart.
But I feel like
I'm giving you the reason why you can't talk about it.
I feel like you're the greatest defense attorney for two scammers in terms of just like their
I've
thinking.
been scammed. That's why I know I've been scared.
But Mark, I want to square the circle, as I keep on saying, like a cliche, unfortunately, of like how these guys can be smart enough to pull something off, but stupid enough to tell. Truly, in my reporting, so many people inside the company.
But you're missing the point.
No. Because
how else do you get them to shut up? How else do you get them to shut up? And stay focused on the job.
But I think there are two choices. It's how else do you get them to shut up? But also, if we tell them a lie that it directly indicts the guy we're trying to keep out of the news, you've given them the recipe to tell a reporter in September of 2025.
How many of them know how the NBA CBA works?
Dude, it's not, the whole notion of cap circumvention is not especially complicated as a concept.
It's not. It's easy.
Exactly. So the whole idea of like, the reason it's a secret is because we're paying Kawhi outside the cap.
If you hadn't told me Uncle Dennis was the one to make the call, I would have been more likely to believe that Steve was at fault.
Wait a minute. So let's dig in on that. So why is that?
Because if Steve knew, and the minute he found out that this was falling apart and these guys were a scam, he'd say, let me invest some more money so you can pay off Kawhi so this whole thing goes away and there's no evidence of it any longer, and let's just erase all this from the books. You don't leave this outstanding debt out there. And particularly once you see that they're on a path to going broke, and potentially you understand enough, and I think we've all had enough experiences with bankruptcies, that those creditors are going to become public. And because that's where you got the story, right? And so that's, the whole due diligence, smart enough to know, right? It applies to that as well. He's leaving himself so wide open in a way that he's going to be smart enough not to be if he's truly breaking the rules. If Ballmer was involved and he just immediately square the circle, to use your term, the minute things went sour, he's a fucking moron.
You're saying save aspiration personally to prevent bankruptcy, to prevent all of this stuff.
That's one option, or invest more money, right? And just tell them to pay off Kawhi. Because it would have made no sense to do this on an annual basis. It would have made a lot more sense to pay it off, put it away. Nobody knows any better.
The question I would ask you, though, would your calculation of throwing another $50 million after your original $50 million change if you became perhaps suspicious, if not aware, that one of these men was going to be pleading guilty to wire fraud?
He knows he's at that point.
Yeah,
right?
I agree.
He knows they're committing to wire fraud. He knows they're. So I'm doing everything possible. I'm going to Uncle Dennis, and I'm saying, check written. Well, that's the next question, right? As a correspondent and an investigative journalist,
that's right,
from Indiana University.
All right, you guys. So, yeah, Pablo giving them that work, man. Pablo giving them that work, bro. Pablo is giving them that work. He giving them that work, man. Straight up, man. Straight up. Straight up, man. Bro, the NBA is going, bro, this shit is going to be, I'm telling you, they're going to make him sell the team, bro. And what's going to happen is we're going to find out what happened with the Intuit Dome, with the Clippers Arena, man. Bro, this shit, Kawhi's going to lose his contract. Uncle Dennis is going to be banned from the NBA for life. He's not going to be able to be around any NBA circles again. There's probably going to be a federal investigation going into Kawhi Leonard and the owner of this team. Bro, this shit going. People don't understand how big this is. And most folks want to come on and just talk about LeBron James all day, every single day, like that's the only thing going on in the league. No, it's a lot of other things going on. And one of them's name is Kawhi Leonard and the LA Strippers and Steve Ballmer. And I've always said that's why his name is Kawhi. And I've taken so much heat for this. So much heat. But what if Ticket was right the entire time? What if the entire time I was right? Dead right. And I took all that heat for years. And I was right. And Steve Ballmer, who has a history throughout his career, even before the NBA, and people out here trying to get him a pass, man, he's the lead head honcho in this situation. fake ass Uncle Phil looking. Man, come on, bro.
The Powell School of Journalism, right? Why wouldn't Ballmer just go, or have representative thereof, just go to Uncle Dennis and say, Uncle Dennis, forget those guys. Here's $30 million to make for you to get aspiration amnesia and just make this go away.
Oh, you want SEC style? You want SEC?
Well, no,
SEC's
already investigating. He already knows.
No, sorry, I meant Southeastern Conference football style.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
Yeah. But that's what you're saying is directly pay Uncle Dennis.
Yeah. I mean, look, it's risk reward. If he was dumb enough to go down this path in the first place.
Yeah, he said it's risk first reward. He said if he was dumb enough. So Mark Cuban is really smoking. He is really smoking Steve Ballmer. He really cooking him like, you idiot. And Mark Cuban knows in his mind that Steve Ballmer's an idiot, bro. He knows this, bro. He knows this, bro. He knows this. I'm telling y'all this. Right? It's crazy work, man. Crazy work, bro. Crazy work, man. Let's keep going, man.
Logically, now we're completely in agreement. I think some dumb shit happened after some dumb shit happened. I mean, that's my suspicion.
Yeah, all suspicion, right? All allegations, right? But I just don't think that he's just going to say, you know what? Let's just see where it goes and may the chips fall where they may.
But I think that the chips falling almost happened behind closed doors that no one saw. The question of, was there going to be someone who was obsessed with bankruptcy filing documents like me who would go through this?
No, you're giving yourself, you get credit for doing it, but you're giving yourself too much credit.
No. But the point is, why didn't anybody else find it? I'm not saying that I'm great. I'm just saying that nobody else found it.
So one of us has got to be right. One of us is wrong, right? Either team
Ballmer. I'm team bricks once again.
Okay, so team bricks or team Ballmer, right? I just think if it's team Ballmer, he didn't know, and all this is going on, and that's why there was no response. You're saying that it's all falling apart anyways, and everybody's bricks, and they're going to do nothing.
I think they didn't have moves to make with aspiration because there was criminal activity that has now been revealed in DOJ and SEC investigation.
Remember what I just said, right? It's Uncle Dennis, right? Or
So with moves to make with aspiration. So let's just put aspiration to the side. So the question is, what timeline are we living? I believe we're in a timeline in which Steve Ballmer knew, according to the reporting, the 7 sources plus the documents that provide the context, that Steve Ballmer...
all those sources and all those documents are internal to aspiration only, correct?
And I believe that they are the most credible people for the reasons I said.
No, exact opposite.
No.
Exact opposite.
If I were to tell you that the questions about why does this deal exist preceded 2022, would that change your level of belief in Team Bricks?
No, because it doesn't.
Why?
Provide any confirmation that Steve knew anything.
But it happened before there was a need to spin.
So, like I said, the scammers, Uncle Dennis goes to the scammers and says, not knowing they're scammers at the time, say, hey, you just signed this $300 million deal with the Clippers. Who's the best player on the Clippers? Who represents the Clippers the best? Who's going to be here long after they're gone? Work with me. Let's do a deal with Kawhi. And if Kawhi is going to play, whatever. He's not going to show up and hug trees. He's not going to show up and talk about.
He's not going to do anything. Literally anything. He's not going to hit a fave on Twitter.
Yep. Which he doesn't do a lot of anyway, but that's beside the point. That Uncle Dennis is negotiating. That's still not proof that Ballmer knew.
Mark, what I'm saying is the reason I trust these people is because when I interviewed them and I asked them about this bankruptcy filing, this LLC, they said immediately, oh, it's for this reason. And then I said, can we prove it? And they said, yeah. There's a document. And I said, can I have the document? They said to me, here it is. The contract, the $28 million contract in which none of the jobs were contractually obligated in terms of deliverables on the KPIs. The KPIs were just play for the Clippers, which again, established. The point being that their knowledge of this and their providing of it was substantiated by documentation, emails, bank statements, other sources, 7 of them, 7.
None of which connect Steve Ballmer.
But they all connect Steve Ballmer. They say it was cap circumvention at the direction of the most important investor in our company who put $50 million in.
And who did that email come from?
Which email?
The one saying this is at the direction of, is cap circumvention at the direction of.
That was what they were told. They were not stupid enough to put it in emails.
Okay, so who told them? Was it Sandberg?
When I say it was common knowledge at the company, I think there are 2 ways to see it. One is, wow, the scammers perpetrated a plan that was so deliberate that it handcuffed people from going to anybody and saying anything because they needed to protect Steve Ballmer. And that's why they were, zip, can't talk about it, right? The other thing that's possible here, though, is that these guys ran a scam that was so messy that it got shot down within 2 years, 3 years if generous, and they didn't really consider this. And that, like,
but that still doesn't implicate Steve Ballmer.
But it does. But really, now we're talking about is the credibility of the 7 people I spoke to, plus the documentation they provided.
It really comes down to the credibility of the people who told them.
But the point is that when they say this, in the light of day, it all adds up with reality. And what they said is not, you know what, we were lied to. This is the only thing that makes sense. It's the only thing.
I get that too. It does. It's the only thing that makes sense.
It's the Occam's razor, Mark.
Not even close. Not even close.
You're suggesting, what you're suggesting here is that these scammers made it so that they were smart enough to tell these rank and file employees that, hey, don't tell anybody because it's Ballmer. They were stupid enough to not realize that one day they would actually tell me, a journalist, exactly what they were told.
Every Ponzi scheme falls apart at some point, right? Every single one of them. Madoff went for how many years? And all those people who worked for him, all of them, down to the computer programmers who programmed the false statements that got sent out to the owner of the Mets at the time, right? And all the other victims that they had. Right. Everybody has to fall in line. They don't all think they're working for a scammer. A couple of them know, but they're all told that Bernie Madoff is making 15% a year, risk-free. So look, you had people in the Bernie Madoff case to go back to how your logic, who were smart investors, including, people who are some of the, at the time, biggest investors with the most money, right? And they got scammed, right? Unknowingly, they trusted people. Maybe maybe Bill Clinton told Steve Ballmer, right, that these guys are legit. So I'll tell you a quick story, right? There's a guy that I competed with 40.
He says maybe Bill Clinton. He said maybe Bill Clinton told Steve Ballmer that these guys are legit. Oh my God. Unbelievable stuff, man. Unbelievable stuff. This is crazy work, man. Oh my goodness gracious, man. But Mark Cuban, he was smart enough to not do this deal. Greenleaf, for the homie, salute to you, my brother. Mark Cuban was smart enough, y'all, to not get in bed with these people and do this deal. But yeah, the other guy, he's just a damn fool. He just, we just have to just, bro, it's absolutely fucking disgusting, bro. It really is, man. It's really disgusting, bro. And it's sad. It's sad too. It's not only disgusting, you guys, but it's sad that we're literally at this point that we're at, man. This is a real bad look for the league, man. The league is gonna go out bad on this one, man. They're gonna go out bad on this one, bro. This is a bad look, man. And I'm telling you guys something. This is gonna open up massive investigations across the league because big dummy Kendrick Perkins running around here saying, well, I'm gonna tell you something, man. Because see, a lot of people are doing this. Oh, name them, Kendrick Perkins. Name them. We want to know. Name the people. Name them. Go ahead and name them, Percolator. Kendrick Percolator. Name these people. We would love to know who's out here cheating. You know what I'm saying? Is there a certain guy in Los Angeles that plays for the other team? Do you know anything about him, Kendrick Perkins?
Years ago with my company, Micro Solutions. This guy was good, really, really good, great technologist. He contacts me 30 years later and he says, I'm putting together this company. I do some due diligence, but I trusted him, just at best trusted him. All a scam. Now, in this case, I lost $8 million, right? I'd done basic due diligence, but it was underpinned on the trust and the references that I got. I had no idea. And all this technology stuff, he would tell me I had to deal with this company and this company and this company. And his employees believed him. His family believed him. I believed him. And so when I keep on going back and say, some scammers may be good, but all Ponzi schemes fail at some point. And when those Ponzi schemes start to falter, that's when things start to come to light. And again, I haven't heard anything that takes me off the team Ballmer. I think that, there's a lot of uncertainty. I just don't see it.
But this is really where I'm driving to, because what I presented you with is an owner who wants to win very badly, just like you did. An owner who has so much more money to spend than he's allowed to spend.
And again, he got him on that DeAndre Jordan thing. Mark Cuban had no response when he asked him about the cheating over the DeAndre Jordan shit. But that's because Mark Cuban knows. Mark Cuban is setting this whole thing up. He's acting like he's taking up for, Steve Ballmer. But in my opinion, I think he knows he wants Steve Ballmer out of here. I think Mark Cuban will never get over that. And I think that Mark Cuban, I don't think he's a perfect guy, but I don't think that he's as shady as what this investigation could prove Steve Ballmer to have been. I mean, bro, this shit is crazy.
Pretty unique to him. Not that you're not very wealthy, Mark, and not that
no, I hear you. Okay.
You made it rain.
He's got a lot more
you
money
made it rain.
Yeah.
Those padded seats, courtside was
right. I got it done, baby.
Incredible thing. But what I'm saying though is that
nobody else put microphones on the rims until me.
You are a pioneer. A pioneer.
Yeah. In the rim world, I'm in the Hall of Fame.
Oh, gosh, what is that?
Take that back.
I was going to say, we're gonna
say that. Cut that out.
We digress. I've given you this story of an owner who is those things, who also in 2015 went head to head with you for DeAndre Jordan.
Yeah, and got fined.
Fined $250,000 for trying to arrange a side endorsement deal with Lexus, and was told you can't do that. And so now 2019 comes around, and all these other owners in the NBA at the Board of Governors meeting, which you said you attended, are saying, this Uncle Dennis guy, who you personally have experience pleading with you, give me some stuff, right? That guy...
It wasn't quite like that, but he contacted us.
Okay, okay, fair. But the point being that there was an investigation by the league specifically around side deals, endorsement side deals, that resulted in the changing of the rules, right?
Yeah.
And so that's 2019. And so then we get to 2021, and Steve Ballmer, right, having acquired Kawhi Leonard, needs to figure out in this extension that he signs Kawhi Leonard to, and this is, I think, a key detail that maybe we've sort of underplayed. He signs Kawhi Leonard to a deal that was mysterious at the time to the people who had no idea about the story, but were just covering it from an NBA perspective. Neither the shortest nor the longest extension available. He signed a deal that was convenient to the Clippers. 4 years, $176.3 million in 2021.
How much was that short of the max? How much was that short of the max?
It was a max. It was just that he restrained the ceiling on available money because he didn't go as long or as short as he could have. And so the question then is...
But he didn't really give up any money. He gave up optionality.
Optionality to align his contract with Paul George's with the Clippers, right? Which is something that was very helpful, as covered, by the way, at the time. Mark,
okay. But there's no equivalency.
He signed
it's not like he gave up $7 million.
Kawhi Leonard wanted maximum money at all times. But the point being is, that same time, this guy who had previously gotten in trouble in the way with DeAndre Jordan, head to head with you, and also was investigated by the NBA for specifically this reason, has this deal with a sponsor who says to him, you know what, we should give you $300 million as your founding partner of this arena. And also, guess what, Steve? You should give us 50 of your own. And simultaneous to that, in this timeline, 2021 fall.
I get
But I'm just saying, you are sort of contorting this.
So why 28? Why 28 million?
It's just, by the way, less than 50, which you put in. Like the sources inside of
Why
aspiration.
7 million a year? Why 7 million a year?
By the way, fair market value when it comes to cap circumvention, you mentioned that this is bigger than Joe Smith, unprecedented in that way. It's because it's a big number. It's like, why? Why would they do that?
Oh, no. The cap circumvention doesn't matter about the number. It's just that you do it. The number is irrelevant. It's just the fact that you would do it.
But okay, so in that regard, when Steve Ballmer tried to sign DeAndre Jordan to that deal and got fined $250, doesn't that feel like an important detail when calculating, are you team Ballmer or are you team bricks?
Yeah, but I would take the other side saying you learn really quick, right? And the NBA, when they fine you the $250, so the process as an expert in being fined, there's negotiations that go on and there's discussions that go on. And you talk to the NBA general counsel and they lay it out to you exactly what the risk factors are. And they're not shy to say, if you do this again, the circumstances will be far worse.
So what if...
And let me remind you of this again. And they will remind you
totally
over and over and over again. So I look at that as, hey, that was the warning, and that increased the risk profile for doing this even more.
So what if there was a way, though, where you could sign somebody to an endorsement deal in which no one ever had to know about it?
No NBA owner is dumb enough to think that, at least I don't think so.
But he did it already against you for DeAndre Jordan.
No, I get that, and he hopefully learned his lesson.
Why would you assume that this man, who, in the face of all the evidence I've given you, Mark, as I assess team
but I tell you, in the face of all the evidence I've given you on the party he is dealing with.
I dare say that you provided zero evidence and more just logic based on how you would have done things. And you seem to have this perspective that is so conveniently generous to the 6th or 7th richest guy in the world. And not the reality of how this story has unfolded.
Man, and he out here cooking.
Caller.
And when I say cooking. But I think that Mark Cuban wanted to get cooked. I don't think Mark Cuban cared about getting cooked. I think Mark Cuban is putting on the grill.
Scam from the Clippers' perspective. Who is the linchpin in everything?
Steve Ballmer. Steve Ballmer put in $50 million, got out $300. Is said by 7 sources to have been the reason. There's documentation, there are emails. He's doing business development for this company.
Uncle Dennis is the linchpin. He's the fulcrum. So if you really have your franchise at risk, and you know this guy, and according to you, he knew about this. He knew about the 28 million, and at this point in time, there's only 7 million left to go. You know, you have Uncle Dennis saying, "Where's the rest of my money?" Don't you just take care of it because it's a de minimis amount relative to the risk?
Not if, and this is, I want to read Bloomberg here, Mark, because I want to give some of the reporting that had been done before me some credit here. This is what they say. By early 2022, Aspiration accountants had uncovered a series of payments that sent a wave of panic through the company's executive suite. And they go on to outline the ways in which, quote, some Aspiration staffers worried that a company official might be orchestrating fake transactions to inflate its numbers. Staffers were digging into the company. The sources, in fact, that I spoke to, these are the people that I trust.
The times I told you I was scammed, when I asked for reports from the CEOs of those companies, the scammers, you think they told me the truth?
What I'm saying, though, is that here are a number of people in the finance department who were, in fact, the reason why Aspiration was revealed to be the scam. The people you're saying might have been lied to by the scammers are the ones who caught the scammers.
Right.
Let's just do the hypothetical here, because you're not going to budge off of Team Ballmer, and I'm not going to budge off of my reporting.
That's what makes them more reports.
And that's okay.
Yeah,
that's great.
Yeah.
But if, in fact, my reporting proves out to be correct,
and he knows, then it's go Mavs. Great. This is great. You know, it's in all my personal interest.
What about, though, the Clippers front office, right? I guess what I'm trying to say is, if in fact someone had to know from the Clippers, right? It wasn't binary. It wasn't no one from the Clippers knew.
No, there's a good chance that it'd be only the owner at that point in time.
Okay.
Lawrence Frank has been through it forever. If he did tell Lawrence and the assistant GMs, they're too. Their careers are toast. Absolutely.
Toast. I've been trying to tell these cats, bro. Mark Cuban know what's up, man. I've been trying to tell these dudes, man. They don't want to listen to your boy, man. Your boy come through rocking like cut off stocking, man. I told y'all, man, never trust a stripper. Didn't I tell y'all this? Never trust a stripper. And they don't have to, you know what I'm saying? I'm just keeping it 100 with y'all. And, you know, telling y'all what the real is. You did? But I never trust a stripper. Ever trust the strippers. They the LA strippers, bro. They the LA strippers, man. Straight up. They the LA strippers, man. Hold on, let me write this to y'all. Hold on. Hold on 1 second. I gotta write this to y'all. Hold on. Hold on 1 second, you guys. Hold on. Hold on. I'm on it.
Host. And there's a 99% chance that at some point it comes out, you know, as they try to protect their career. That's one. Two, the agent is going to be in deep as well if it ever comes out. And the agent has got to be involved at some level. And so the agent, I don't know what other clients they have, if any, but they're too. And so you've got a multi-billion-dollar franchise at risk. You've got the general manager's job. You've got the agent's job. You've got Uncle Dennis, who has no leverage whatsoever.
Well, he has the relationship with the most important person in this entire story.
Yeah,
right.
And so does every parent. So does every uncle, and so does every friend.
But Mark, you know that Uncle Dennis.
And he also knows, and Ballmer also knows that A, Ballmer is under a microscope for 2015, and B, Uncle Dennis is under a microscope as well.
But now I just want to fill in the reality, not to interrupt because I don't want to be rude. But like Uncle Dennis was, of course, subject of the investigation in 2019, and so what he's doing now, in reality, of course, is literally be the designated rep on a deal for Kawhi Leonard for $28 million. That is at the very least something that has now, by the way, did you see the Shams thing that just came out as we were talking?
No.
The NBA is investigating.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, but the point is that that's because Uncle Dennis had this deal. So the question of Uncle Dennis, should he know better? Clearly, he didn't know better enough.
I got no problem with Uncle Dennis. Uncle Dennis is the smart one in all of this.
I think mileage varies on that scouting report, but I take it at face value as well. He's doing.
Well, no, look, Uncle Dennis, who has no leverage anywhere, shape, or form.
But Mark, right? You know that the leverage is in the player. The player is the scarcest commodity here, right?
They are and they aren't, right? Because the home team has the edge. It's rare, unless
I feel like you're trying to give a.
Man, Mark Cuban is a funny cat, bro. Mark Cuban is a funny cat, bro. He is a funny cat.
A pep talk to Steve Ballmer in 2021?
No, I don't give it one way or the other. But I hope I'm wrong. The Mavs part of me hopes I'm wrong.
But I understand your point of view.
The former owner and the logic and everything I've dealt with as a business person, investor, entrepreneur, and owner.
To the person who said nothing will happen, I'm not even going to block you. I'm going to let you sit on this chat room. So when it do happen, you come here and get on your knees and apologize to me, sucker. You guys are idiots. Nothing will happen. Are you a fucking idiot, dog? Do you not know that there's a federal investigation where this company has pled guilty? Do you not know that the NBA is not the ones who are doing the investigation? It is an independent legal law firm, the same law firm that just got rid of Robert Sarver and got rid of Donald Sterling. You idiot. You guys come on YouTube and say anything. You a damn fool. You come on YouTube and say anything because you don't have no brains. You know what the fuck you talking about. You just full of shit. Learn life before you come in here running your mouth with me, nigga. Learn life. Now sit your dumb ass down.
Tells me you're wrong.
Over 1 million creators.
These people crazy as hell. These people coming here saying anything. Oh, dude, ain't nothing gonna happen. You're a fucking idiot. You have no brains, and you don't have any kind of common sense to know what's going on. Shut your mouth.
No, it's not even that. I look at it, it's just math, right? I look at the math and the leverage, and I don't see the value proposition anywhere. Your whole premise is based on the fact that Kawhi Leonard will take advice from Uncle Dennis and do effectively whatever is in the interest more of Uncle Dennis than of Kawhi.
Well, hold on, but that part, right? We know Kawhi Leonard is a frugal person. He wants to maximize his earnings, saves every penny, gas guzzler. So legendary in that regard. So he
makes him lovable.
By the way, he's a capitalist. Kawhi Leonard board man wants to get paid. Kawhi Leonard to me is
very as bad. Look, I don't know Uncle Dennis really at all, and so all this is me presumption and allegations and all this. Right?
He won't answer my call, so I don't. I'm just going based on.
So I'm just saying
the reporting.
Uncle Dennis is the winner in all of this because the CBA rules don't apply to him.
Right.
At all. Right? Whatever he can go in and negotiate is money in his pocket that he did not have yesterday.
So now you're team Uncle Dennis now.
I'm team Uncle Dennis is the smartest one in all of this. Let me ask you a question. Is it conceivable that Uncle Dennis played a stronger hand and basically bluffed and said, I control Kawhi? And I've heard this from many different relatives, friends, except this is my boy. I grew up with him, right? I raised him, whatever it may be. And he overplays it, and he goes to aspirations. He says, I'm going to get him out of here, and unless you pay me $28 million, and your whole sponsorship ain't worth it.
I believe that it's even likelier that that deal happens, but with the blessing of the team that has a $300 million deal with the company that agrees to it.
No.
But Mark, but again, the reason I say that is because I have done all the reporting. I'm not just saying that as a guess.
Your whole reporting, public, you get credit. You picked up a needle in the haystack, right? You found a needle in the haystack and you turned it into something real.
In about 45 minutes, actually, entirely about this subject, which is both incredible and enjoyable, almost perversely, but also undoubtedly my fault as the interviewer. And so this conversation, to be very clear, as all our conversations are on Pablo Torre.
Hold on 1 second, y'all. Hold on 1 second, guys. Hold on. Hold on. Hold on 1 second, y'all. Hold on. I got something big for y'all. Oh my God. But this whole situation is crazy. Oh my God. All right. Now let's get to it. Crazy work.
Story finds out, has been cut down for length and clarity. Because at one point, in fact, Mark Cuban and I were so immersed in said conversation that his phone battery died mid-sentence and his connection completely dropped out, which made us worried for obvious reasons. But then Cuban jumped back on the line and we picked right back up with a question.
It comes down to who initiated that contract. Was it the agent and Uncle Dennis is just trying to collect? Was it the Clippers and they're just huge idiots? Or was it Uncle Dennis acting on his own, freelancing? I would bet on option 3.
I guess what I'm saying is two things. The ultimate leverage in the NBA historically has been
Mark Cuban. Mark Cuban tried to put it on Uncle Dennis. So Uncle Dennis gonna make the Clippers get that man $50 million. Hey, Mark Cuban, you're a funny cat, bro.
Superstar threatening to leave a place in which he can extract in exchange all sorts of stuff. Now, typically, when we say that, it's within the legal bounds of the CBA, right? Mm-hmm. The Kawhi Leonard story since 2019 has been cap circumvention. That's the allegation.
No. There was a story. The story is not the same as the facts.
No, but the story of Kawhi Leonard and this investigation by the NBA, as alleged by your colleagues in the NBA who dealt with him personally, was that this guy is coming to us asking for shares of ownership and more even pressingly, these side endorsement deals, these sweeteners that are off the books.
No, I get what he asked for. And I'm telling you, Pablo, that happens all the time. It's just like this guy asked for ownership, and that's what made it ridiculous.
What I would return to, though, as an NBA fan and a journalist, is the actual timeline of Steve Ballmer owning the Clippers, right? So he wanted the cornerstone, the franchise superstar of a caliber that was going to do the thing that no one had done for the Clippers, which was compete actually with the Lakers. And so the guy who emerges in 2019, fresh off a championship, who looks like, by the way, when healthy, the greatest player in the league as a two-way concern, right? That's Kawhi Leonard's actual legend as a basketball player. He's incredible.
When healthy is a big if.
They said when healthy. Even the owners know that Kawhi is Kawhi. I try to tell y'all this, man. It don't get no better than this. He said, if it's a big if. I try to tell these dudes, man. Bro, don't nobody believe in Kawhi, man. I'm just keeping it real with y'all, man. Straight up, man. Nobody believes in Kawhi, bro.
And Steve Ballmer had the opportunity to do the rarest of things, right? Get a free agent franchise player in his prime, which does not happen.
And how did he do that? And what did he give up to do that?
He gave up everything.
5 number ones, was it? Was it 5 number ones?
It was Shea Gilgeous-Alexander.
Shea, we didn't know was Shea, right?
In fairness. But basically, and this is, I think, the point I want to drive at, and you just took me there. He did whatever Kawhi Leonard's camp was saying he had to do. That was the story of that offseason, you recall, right? He wanted Paul George.
So if what you're saying is that wasn't enough, and he'd go to any length to do anything, but only for Kawhi, I'm not going down that road.
Oh, no. I'm saying that he clearly knew the importance, because he's an NBA fan, of how you need a true number one superstar to contend.
Yeah, for sure.
And he got the guy, and he gave him, in reality, whatever was requested by the camp, Paul George, draft picks, all that stuff. He made it happen, right? Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, Danilo Gallinari, 5 first-rounders, your memory is good, plus 2 pick swaps going to OKC, right? At the time.
Mm-hmm.
Time, this was all very clearly Kawhi wanted to make this happen, and Steve Ballmer was happy to do it.
Yeah. Yep.
Absolutely. And so the question then is, given that kind of mindset, hyper-competitive, by the way.
I get your point, right?
But
where do you
also,
stop? I get your point. Where do you stop, right? I get it.
Exactly. And what I'm saying is, the reason I keep on going back to your experience with DeAndre Jordan to 2019 to 2021 is because it's
pattern of behavior. I get the pattern.
Of behavior. And you're suggesting that at some point he got scared straight by 2019, despite the fact that he got what he wanted, and for some reason stopped acting like that.
If the catalyst is Uncle Dennis, I couldn't think of anything dumber, right? Because you're going to the very person that required board of governor meetings and follow-ups to send a message. This is not applicable. This is a problem. And I get your point.
You're desperate. You're desperate to keep this player.
I just don't think it was a binary set of circumstances like that.
Uh-huh. Hold on, y'all. Hold on one second, man. Oh my God, bro.
I just don't see it. Like I said before, I think it's far more likely that Uncle Dennis was the catalyst with the crooks. And I just don't think you can just presume that everything with Aspiration, the crooked company, is the equivalent of a legit company.
Mark, I don't think I could possibly convince you any better than I've tried.
And vice versa.
I appreciate it.
To me, it's so point blank obvious that, look, both of us could be wrong. Neither of us, one of us could be right. We'll find out over time. I just can't see him like going in that direction. I just don't.
Mark Cuban, part owner of the Dallas Mavericks, which is a conversation I want to.
Man, this is crazy work, man.
To get to, but we never got to it because, of course, this happened. 27% owner of the Dallas Mavericks, Mr. 27%. I think I've said all I can possibly say, and for that reason, Mark Cuban, I am out.
I was waiting for you to say it.
I just had to say it.
This was a lot of fun. It really was.
Mark, thank you very much, sincerely.
Appreciate it, Pablo. Really do.
So, yeah, man. Mark Cuban, he knows, man. Only an idiot would do what the Clippers did. But when you the strippers and when you desperate, sometimes desperation makes you do things that you shouldn't do. And so, yeah, man. Big trouble on the way. And you guys will see. Like, share, subscribe. And to the brother sit up who says nothing's going to happen, put your money on it. Let's put $1,000 on it. Sit up. Let's put 1,000. You got $1,000? Let's put $1,000 on it. I'll take your bread. Just let me know if you want that bet. Since you say nothing's going to happen, put your money where your mouth is. Since you say nothing's going to happen, you said nothing's going to happen. Let's put $1,000 on it. I'll put $1,000 on it with you right now. Let's see if you still got that big mouth. Let's put 1,000 on it, dog. See if you still got that mouth, boy. So you quiet. Why you quiet, dog? Why you quiet? Yeah, that's what I thought. You don't want no smoke for real. You just talking. See how these dudes coming here just talking? Yeah. Hey, I really appreciate you guys for supporting the channel, supporting the network. Like, share, and subscribe. Once again, there are links. Get the free membership on our website. That way you guys won't miss any of our news update stories or videos. They're all on the website, ticketvmedia.com. You go over there. You can go right to the members part and become a free member. That way you guys will get all the updates. Also, straight drought weight loss formula. Make sure y'all go tap in and copy some of that, as well as subscribing to our podcast show. Link will be pinned at the top of the chat down there below. And also, we just appreciate all y'all who support the channel. Cash App, PayPal.